Today, we have a 2024 Dynasty Superflex rookie mock draft with landing spots, and this mock draft has Caleb Williams going first overall to the Chicago Bears. The mock draft is by Sports Illustrated and is a one-round mock. So, assuming Caleb Williams goes first overall, he has to be the one-on-one in your rookie drafts. Assuming it's a Superflex format, which we are assuming it is, Caleb Williams is just too valuable to pass up, especially at the quarterback position. These quarterbacks are pushed up the rankings insanely because of the value they provide, how hard it is to get them. And if he goes first overall, that answers a lot of questions about his character. You know, we had the concerns about, he pinched his nails. His camp was asking for ownership. And the USC players were apparently saying, like, we're a team now. Don't really know how much to read into that. But if the NFL GMs that actually have the time to sit down with him, talk to Caleb Williams, realize that, a lot of this stuff is blown out of proportion and still want to select him number one, then I feel like we don't really have anything to worry about. Obviously, as a player, Williams is an unbelievable prospect. He has elite arm strength, great accuracy at every level, and can create out of the pocket like we haven't seen it in a while. I don't want to tout him as a generational prospect, but the throws he makes, the arm angles he can get, and just everything he can do out of structure is simply unbelievable. And then we're going over to the 102 in our Superflex rookie mock draft. We have Marvin Harrison, who also goes second overall, so following a common theme, to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this would be a match made in heaven, in my opinion. They already have Trey McBride, who they're feeding the ball a ton, but they need an actual wide receiver that can line up out wide and command a ton of targets from Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is a very underrated quarterback, but Hollywood Brown, sure, he's a good player. I actually like Hollywood Brown, but he's not that 6'4" alpha X wide receiver that can do everything from the outside, in the slot, in line, anywhere on the field that you want to put him. He's limited to some extent, and he's fairly small, so it really does hurt Kyler and the rest of this Cardinals offense. I think the Cardinals aren't as bad as their record makes them out to be. Obviously, losing Kyler for most of the season kind of tanked them. But I think they can really turn things around, and this can be a pretty decent offense. I'm not really sure what the future holds for James Conner, but assuming they have Hollywood Brown, Trey McBride, who's really emerging, and Kyler Murray fully healthy for next year, to pair alongside Marv, I really, really like that pairing. Obviously, the prospect, Marvin Harrison, just an elite player. He's 6'4", massive, and can run a 4.4, hopefully, at the NFL Combine. But we will see. Now, our next surprise is going to be at the 103, where we have our second quarterback, and it's going to be Jayden Daniels. Now, I actually don't have Daniels ranked ahead of Drake Maye, but if he goes to the Patriots in the top 5, I feel like he just has to be the second quarterback off the board, based solely on his rushing upside. For these quarterbacks like Jayden Daniels, who have 1,000 rushing yards, they have a fantasy ceiling that is through the roof. And Drake Maye, yeah, he's a good runner, but he just cannot touch that. And assuming he gets top 5 draft capital, that means he's going to get 1 to 2 guaranteed years. They're going to be very patient with Jayden Daniels. They're going to build around him. And even if he doesn't really pan out, he's going to have top 12 fantasy quarterback value for the next 2 years for sure because of that rushing upside, giving him such a high floor. But he also has a massive ceiling based on his athleticism, the fact that we've seen him go crazy in the passing game, winning the Heisman this past year. All the potential in the world. Draft capital means everything for these rushing quarterbacks. And if he goes top 5, which is very high, I would expect him, maybe to go top 15. And then we have a conversation. He has to be third overall for me in the Superflex rookie mock draft. But then we'll drop down to Drake Maye, who goes to the Commanders at 3. So Drake Maye does go ahead of Jayden Daniels, but like I said, Drake Maye just doesn't have the same rushing upside that Jayden Daniels does. And his draft capital, I think we kind of know what it is. I think he's going to be a top 5 pick no matter what based on the scarcity at the position. But Maye does have good rushing upside, but he kind of reminds me more of a Justin Herbert type build. He's that stereotypical 6'4", 6'5" quarterback that can really hang in the pocket, make a lot of next level throws. He just really did impress me on the tape this year, or statistically either. Only 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But nonetheless, like I said, we have to push up these quarterbacks because Maye is going to be the franchise guy for the Commanders. They obviously don't want Sam Howell. They obviously tried to bench him already, came back because Brissett got injured, which is kind of, karma, kind of crazy for the Commanders. But statistically, Maye is going to be that guy because there's never been a franchise quarterback or a quarterback that's been drafted in the top 3 who has started less than 25 games besides Trey Lance. Obviously, we know he's the outlier. But yeah, Maye goes third overall. He's going to be the franchise guy, giving him at least 2 years, which is a massive, massive deal in a Superflex format. But then we'll go down to 5, and we have Malik Nabers going to the Jets. Now, obviously, the Jets have Garrett Wilson, but Malik Nabers goes top 10 this draft. He was 9th overall, which is crazy draft capital. He's Aaron Rodgers for next year, and he's paired with Garrett Wilson. So, do I love it? I don't think I do. I've seen Malik Nabers going, as high as 3rd and 4th. So, this is kind of like a drop down, in my opinion. Still was unbelievable, going for 85 catches, 14 touchdowns, 1.5 thousand yards last year. And he just is an absolute freak. Unbelievable in so many metrics. And I love the player. I just don't love the landing spot. I don't really know how pairing him next to Garrett Wilson is really going to help him in the long term. Sure, maybe short term it opens up some opportunities, gets him on the field early and gets him some spacing. But he's never really going to develop into that true target hog receiver that I think a lot of people were hoping if he's playing next to Garrett Wilson, who becomes an elite receiver. Then we're going at 6, and we have Brock Bowers, who in this mock draft goes 6 overall to the Chargers. Now, the Chargers are a dream landing spot for me. I am pushing Brock Bowers up every single draft board if this actually happens. But I think we're kind of just forgetting how good Bowers has been. He has been probably the best tight end in college football for 3 years now, which is unbelievable if you don't say out loud. Dominated for Georgia, just crushed every single year, very athletic. He is that prototypical receiving tight end, which is perfect for the NFL, fantasy football, and also not a bad blocker as well. So I expect him to get on the field early and often. But yeah, if he goes above a guy like Malik Nabers in the NFL draft, that is very telling. The Chargers don't have really many offensive weapons. So let's break this down. They have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Both are aging out. By the time Bowers really hits his peak as a tight end, those guys are going to be long gone. I don't really know what to say about Quentin Johnson. I don't think it's time to, totally give up on him, but obviously he's not looking like an elite talent, so we're not going to tout him as that. I think he can be a solid player, but I don't really know if he could ever be a one, like an elite guy in an offense. So Bowers could very well be that, target hog at the tight end position, which is so valuable in fantasy football, and he's going to have Justin Herbert throwing him the ball. Really believe in Herbert. I really wasn't on him as much as other people were at the beginning of his career, but now that his value has kind of dipped down, I'm starting to buy it again. Really love Bowers, and I think this is probably the most significant landing spot in the entire mock draft. But then we're going to drop down to 7, where we have Rome Odunze, who goes 10 to the Falcons. Rome Odunze is very, very good. He's an excellent prospect, but there's a few things that scare me. For one, he never really, showed that he was a phenomenal guy at the catch point until Michael Penix broke out this year. He also is coming from Washington with Michael Penix, so there's that as well. In the Pac-12, you always have some concerns. He's a elite alpha X wide receiver, but those guys don't always pan out in the NFL because, yes, they're great from an NFL perspective, but it can be very hard for these guys to draw, targets. That said, Rome Odunze is a stud. He is an absolute freak, and if he goes top 10, that's great draft capital. That's the NFL telling us, that they really like Odunze and that he's a phenomenal player. However, let's go back to the negative side of the coin. I said he's going to the Falcons. The Falcons have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. 3 elite prospects. How good are those guys doing right now? First off, they're all underperforming. And now when you add another mouth to feed, do you really think Odunze is getting targets and receptions and work ahead of all 3 of those guys immediately? No. So his value is probably going to drop after his rookie year. I don't see him being productive in year 1 if the Falcons have Arthur Smith. Now, hopefully by the time you watch this video, Arthur Smith is gone. I'm throwing a party. I'm going crazy because the Falcons actually have some usable talent again. But I just don't trust Arthur Smith to leave the Falcons ever. So right now, I'm operating under the assumption that they're going to have a lot of weapons. Arthur Smith doesn't know how to use them, and it's going to be a very crowded room. Also does have some red flags, so it's going to be very hard for me. But then we're going to drop down to 8. Michael Penix is not in this mock draft because it is only 1 round. But I kind of scoured the internet to kind of fill in these holes, and I have Michael Penix going to the Vikings in the 2nd round, according to Tankathon. For me, that's a dream scenario. You get Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and hopefully they can bring in, a better running back than Alexander Madison in free agency. You got Jordan Addison as well, who looked phenomenal as a rookie. Michael Penix is that quarterback that just needs to sit in the pocket, but he actually impressed me a ton in that last game against Texas. I've been watching Penix all year. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in this class, one of the most underrated. I think he gets too much hate because of his age. Had to stay in college for a while to, one, because of COVID, and two, recover from those 2 ACL injuries, get his health right. I don't think he is a product of being an older college player, considering he was even better last year, threw for 4.6 thousand yards as a junior. That said, sure, maybe it helps a little bit, but he makes so many NFL-ready throws, very good arm strength. He does need to clean up his mechanics. He kind of has a little wind-up, which is a little wonky, but it also kind of seems exaggerated because he's a lefty. I watched some film about, switching him to a righty, and it looks like he gets the ball a lot quicker just because we're kind of naturally biased towards lefties for whatever reason. We're kind of giving him a little too much hate. Is a concern, not a massive concern. But he's a guy that can step in, be a prototypical NFL-ready quarterback, and if you put him in the right situation, like the Vikings with all these weapons, I think he's going to thrive. In Superflex format, you got to take that quarterback value. Then we're going to go 9, Emeka Egbuka. Now, he's also not in this mock draft, and there are a few guys ahead of him, but I still love Egbuka a lot. So he's not in the Sports Illustrated first round, but I see him going in the first round in almost every single Tankathon mock. So I kind of was just looking at some other opportunities, assuming he slides. I put him at the Lions because I feel like that's a very mutual, interesting pick where he could kind of slide into the mid-second round and the Lions take him. Wouldn't really make too much sense to me considering they have Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, but I think he would fit very well. You have Amon-Ra who operates very close to the line of scrimmage. Egbuka is a more of a possession catch wide receiver and does work well near the line of scrimmage, but he kind of seems like more that, intermediate type player. And he is a very good, possession catch player. But that said, he's also fairly athletic. He can push the pace. It's not like he's a one-trick pony. I think he is more likely to play on the outside than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra seems like he's exclusive in the slot. I think Egbuka can play outside a little bit more. Wouldn't really make much sense, but I think Egbuka is the safer prospect out of a lot of these guys, and he's a wide receiver that I trust. We'll drop down to 10, though, to Keon Coleman on the Bengals. I love the landing spot. It's just I'm not sold on Keon Coleman yet. So we obviously are assuming that Keon Coleman is going to replace T. Higgins. I don't really see a world where T. Higgins stays this offseason. I think he wants to get paid, be a number 1 wide receiver, but it's just the disappointing season for Keon Coleman. Yeah, he looks great as a prospect. He looks very good. Just really nothing to write home about with an FSU team. Jordan Travis was very good. I understand he missed a few games at the end of the year, but still, 50 catches, about 500 yards, 600 yards, nothing to write home about. He needs to be a productive player in the final year of his college career, and there's nothing holding him back. It's not like the offense was bad. It's not like his quarterback play was bad, which just kind of scares me. He's a good player. I like the prospect. Just the stats this year, a little bit scary. He's a first-round pick, though. We're putting him at 10. Then we're going to drop down to 11, TreVeyon Henderson, and he's also not in this mock draft because he's a second-round pick. I don't see any way he goes in the first round. But Tankathon has been going to the Cowboys in the second round, which I love this landing spot. Henderson, we'll see if he declares. If he does, my RB1. If not, we will scrape him out of this mock draft. But I think he can replace Tony Pollard. Obviously, the Cowboys are an elite offense. They got Dak, they got CD, Jake Ferguson, solid as well. And obviously, they're notorious for having a very good offensive line. Of course, it's not, prime Ezekiel Elliott line where anyone in that system could do anything. But Henderson's very talented. He's showed off as a true freshman, so we know that he has the breakout age at a young point in his college career. He has that 3-down workload, and watching him in person, I went to an Ohio State game. He looks fully recovered. He is able to, do those jump cuts with ease. He's able to catch the ball out of the backfield very well, and he can really turn on that second gear, which I haven't been able to see from him very much in the past few seasons. So I think Henderson is on the upwards track. I think he should declare this year, and the Cowboys are obviously a great situation. Great line. Think he'll be a fantastic place to end up, assuming he gets second-round draft capital. Really like TreVeyon Henderson, despite this being a weak rookie class for the most part. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that actually would rather have Brian Thomas higher than this. I'm not all in on him. It's the fact that he's playing along Jayden Daniels. He's that big alpha X wide receiver. And I just don't know that him developing so late is warranted, to be honest. Yes, he's playing with Malik Nabers, but I don't know. I'm just not in on Brian Thomas. I don't think he is this same, Alpha X freak wide receiver that everyone's hyping him up to be. I've seen a lot of people compare him to DK Metcalf, which is just outrageous in my opinion. But nonetheless, he's a good player. It's a good landing spot pairing him with CJ Stroud. So let's look at the positives. He's giving with CJ Stroud. Perfect pairing with Tank Dell because Tank Dell is that small receiver. You got Brian Thomas to line up on the outside. A great duo. So we're looking at the positive here. I think he definitely deserves to be a first-round pick. I don't think I can put him above Egbuka just because, the stats pulled up. As a sophomore, 31 catches, 361 yards, did nothing as a freshman, and then all of a sudden, 68 catches, 1.1 thousand yards, 17 touchdowns. He is that, jump ball wide receiver, which doesn't always translate to the NFL. Obviously, touchdowns are the least predictive. I would rather him have more receptions, more receiving yards, and Jayden Daniels had 4,000 passing yards, so that obviously is going to inflate Brian Thomas's stats a ton. I'm kind of out on the fact that he is a late breakout as a junior. I understand it's not too late. It's just the fact that junior's not a typically, terrible age to break out. That's pretty good. Just the fact that he did nothing, and all of a sudden this big alpha X wide receiver comes out of nowhere on the college scene with also his Heisman winning quarterback in a great situation doesn't bode for me very well. Of course, like I said, think he deserves to be a first-round pick, but I'm not pushing him all the way up to like 9 or even 8 or even higher than Coleman or Henderson. But that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We're going to be doing a ton of mock drafts going forward on the channel. We're going to transition back to a mock draft with no landing spots. Going to do a lot mock draft with landing spots the week after that. So going to be alternating. But if you guys have any question about the rookies, any question about what you should do with your dynasty picks, we answered a lot of those in the last video. So drop them again. Drop a like and show us you want to see more. If you like this mock draft or the mock draft with no landing spots more, just let us know. We'll do whatever you guys want to see. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.